Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 330 Sports Show. We are live, and today is Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. I'm your host, Justin Coffin, and we are a Youngstown studio production. Joe, do we have phone lines open?
I didn't put them on.
Okay, no phone lines, but just drop us a comment if you're watching. We'll catch you up. We'll get those phone lines open for Thursday's show. But this is our 100th show, and first of all, we can't thank you enough for your continued support of Youngstown Studio, and I am especially very grateful for your continued support of the 330 Sports Show. Just about a year ago, we started kicking off this show, and I notice a lot of my quirks that I still do, but I think we're getting better and better each show and each week. So again, that's thanks to you guys for us growing as for my show, but also as a network. The best way you guys can always help our show is you know supporting the page by sharing it out. Just like this video right now. If you're watching, share it out to someone you might think might be interested, and that really helps us grow. Word of mouth is huge. So again, just wanted to thank you. Again, our 100th show, but I want to list some upcoming topics that we're going to be talking about. Top 5 Tuesday, we're going to do here in a minute. That's going to be each and every week. We're going to do our tailgate Thursdays, each and every Thursday throughout high school football season with Steve Leslie. We have an Ohio State preview and an ultimate Buckeyes fantasy style draft we're going to be doing here soon. We're going to have the radio voices of the YSU Penguins in here on Thursday night. I'll tell you about that in a little while. We're going to have a Cleveland Browns breakdown in the near future. That's coming very, very fast. And we're also going to preview sort of the know your enemy show. So the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers. We're gonna kind of tackle all those teams as well. We're gonna talk about NFL running backs. We're gonna do a draft with that. We're gonna talk about the best defensive players in the league. We're going to have continued great guests. I'm not going to say who, but I've been in contact with someone that I think is going to be a huge guest in the near future. So that'll be really, really exciting. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to continue with what's trending in sports and all that good stuff. So with that said, we're going to get into our top 5 Tuesday. And what I thought would be a good top 5 Tuesday topic today would be the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, we are 9 days away from kickoff. September 2nd, the Buckeyes will take the field against the Minnesota Golden Gophers in Minneapolis. And so what I did was I kind of compiled my top 5 storylines or headlines for Ohio State's season. So what I thought that might be a good idea for this time. So I'm going to start out with number one. My number one top headline going into the season is Ohio State is going to be starting a redshirt freshman named CJ Stroud. They just announced it on Friday that he was going to be the quarterback. We all kind of knew he had the lead in the clubhouse, but Ohio State is absolutely loaded at the quarterback position. They have CJ Stroud, as I mentioned. He's a very highly touted player, but he was also very, very good at basketball, which kind of put his football recruiting a little bit on the back burner for a little while. So he didn't quite necessarily have all the press coming into Ohio State that the Bama quarterback had, or that DJ Ungalele from Clemson that's going to be taking over for Trevor Lawrence. So we're going to figure out how good this kid is. Is he going to be as good as Justin Fields? Is he going to be as good as JT Barrett? Is he going to be as good as Dwayne Haskins or Braxton Miller? We're not sure, but he has all the talent to be in that same class and group of quarterbacks. So I am really, really excited to see what this kid's going to do. By all accounts, he is excelling down in Columbus in practice. He has not thrown a meaningful pass in a college game. He's played a little bit last year in garbage time, scored a touchdown, but he's still yet to throw a pass in a collegiate game. So, but he's some of our other highlights coming up here will explain why he should be okay. So Backing him up is going to be Kyle McCord. He is a 5-star kid out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They also have Jack Miller, another highly thought of player. And then Quinn Ewers has been making a ton of news with the Buckeyes. He is the top all-time recruit in Ohio State history, and right up there with Trevor Lawrence in all-time recruits. Should be a senior in high school right now, but he got all his academics done in high school, enrolled in Ohio State about 2 weeks ago, and he is on the practice field. Probably won't see the field this year, maybe a little bit mid-season in garbage time, but hopefully he doesn't have to see the field because CJ Stroud is doing the job. Okay, my number 2 headline for the Buckeyes going into the season is going to be Carrie Combs at defensive coordinator. Now, a team that played for a national championship last year, you wouldn't think would have a ton of problems on the defensive end of the ball. However, Ohio State was sort of middle of the pack in defense last year. I think they ranked in the 60s somewhere last year. They were number 6 against the run, so they were very, very good against the run, but they were near the bottom in overall pass defense in all of college football. You know, they got lit up by Alabama in the championship game. They really struggled against Indiana. Indiana was down 35-7 and, just kept throwing and throwing and throwing. But to their credit, they were able to move the ball, and Ohio State was not able to stop them. I give them a little bit of a pass because, we had the COVID situation last year, not much of an offseason. Carrie Combs, who was with the Buckeyes with Urban Meyer, left, went to the Tennessee Titans for a little while, but then he came back. He used to only coach the defensive backs. Now he's in charge of the entire defense. So hopefully he is the right guy for the position. That will remain to be seen. But if Ohio State does not get off to a strong start defensively, he could be on the hot seat with all the talent they do have. Their defensive line is going to be great. It's going to be the linebackers in the secondary that are going to be the biggest question. So that is my number 2 headline, Carrie Combs at defensive coordinator. Number 3, the record-setting offense I put on there. I just thought, in the picture we have on there is Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson very well might go top 20 in the NFL draft in the first round next year. They are the 2 top wide receivers in all of college football. They also have their number 3 wide receiver is Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is a phenomenal football player. Their 4th wide receiver is Marvin Harrison Jr. You probably remember his dad playing with Peyton Manning in the Indianapolis Colts all those years back, but he is a legit stud. They have the number 1 recruit at the wide receiver position is their 5th wide receiver going into the season. And then the number 1 receiver in the 2020 class is their number 6 receiver. So it's a really like, what do they call it? Like a spoil of, it's a plethora. It's like a spoil of riches. Or Joe, you might have to help me on that saying. I can't think of what that's called. It's an embarrassment of riches. That's what I was looking for. But it's ridiculous, their wide receiver room. And then only to top that wide receiver room, they probably have the best offensive line in all of college football. They have probably 3 guys right now on their offensive line that could probably start for just about any NFL team. The Jacksonville Jaguars and Urban Meyer would love to have several of these guys on their team. DeJuan Jones is the guy that's been making a name for himself in camp as right now. This kid is about 6'8", 6'9", about 370 pounds, but can move. He is a guy that they thought was going to come off the bench, but he has shown out in camp. He is probably going to be the left tackle, moving an NFL first rounder named Thayer Munford into left guard. So it's probably going to be DeJuan Jones at left tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle, Thayer Munford at left guard, Harry Miller at center, and another first rounder probably next year, Paris Johnson at right guard. So just absolutely incredibly loaded. So that's why I'm saying I think CJ Stroud, even though he's a freshman, quarterback, redshirt freshman quarterback, should be fine because he's got a dynamic offensive line. He has dynamic playmakers. We haven't even talked about Jeremy Ruckert, who might be one of the top 2, 3, 4 tight ends in the country. They have a great stable of running backs. We all know Master Teague is going to be back. He's more of the steady guy. He's not going to do anything explosive or fancy, but he's going to get the job done. He's going to get you the first downs, sort of like pound the defense there in the fourth quarter. Travion Henderson is a name to watch out for. I believe he wears number 32. He is a true freshman, and he's your home run hitter. He is explosive. He's fast. Think of maybe like a J.K. Dobbins, maybe a little smaller version of J.K. Dobbins, but with more speed. So this kid is going to light it up once he gets more reps and experience. And then the guy you don't hear about too often until this fall camp is Mayan Williams. He affectionately is known as Meatball. He doesn't like that name. He actually dropped a few pounds, but he's sort of a combination of the two. He's big enough to run over guys like Master Teague or to run between the tackles, but he's also got that explosive ability as a Travion Henderson. So those are going to be the top 3 stable of running backs, in my opinion. And I really, really am excited to see what the Buckeyes do. Number four on my list is the schedule. Now, the schedule is, it's up for debate, whether you think it's easy, whether you think it's tough. There's several tough games, and I think 2 of the tougher games are the first 2 games of the year. They travel to Minnesota, Minnesota is returning the most experience out of all 130 Division I football teams in the country. They have the most returning experience. They're the oldest team in college football based on their experience. So that's not going to be an easy game. I think Ohio State has plenty of offense and their defense should be fine, or Minnesota's not going to be able to keep up. But I expect the Buckeyes to win that game fairly handily, but it could be closer than I think. I still haven't got a good read on Minnesota. We're about a week out now, so we'll see what they do. But they have a really good running back. They have a very good returning quarterback and some skill on both the offense and defensive side of the ball. So that'll be pretty interesting. Oregon comes to town. Oregon Ducks. They were supposed to play last year. Obviously, game got canceled with COVID. But Oregon comes to Columbus this year. That is actually going to be a noon kickoff. So a West Coast team coming to East Coast time, playing. So that's technically a 9 a.m. kickoff for the Ducks. So that should be to Ohio State's advantage. Personally, I think we'd all want that to be a night game, but again, that plays to Ohio State's advantage. And then looking through the rest of the schedule, you got Indiana at Indiana. That's going to be a tough game. They return. Indiana, of old, you could kind of chalk up as a win right on your schedule. Indiana is going to be a very, very, very good team this year. So I'm excited to see what they do. However, hopefully the Buckeyes are able to go into Bloomington and take care of business there. We'll get more into a schedule breakdown later, but Penn State's obviously on the schedule. Going to be a tough game. That team up north, November 22nd. Now, real quick, a couple things. My stepdad was out in Colorado last week, and they have live betting where you can just go to the casino and play sports bets. So I had him put 2 futures down for sports betting. My 2 sports bets that I made were I put $100 on Washington Huskies. Their over under was 8.5. So I put $100 on them to go over. So 9 wins or more. I think that's a lock. Personally, that's just my opinion. I'm saying that on August 24th. We'll see if that comes to fruition. And then my other bet, you might think this is interesting. Michigan, I took the under. Their over under is 7.5 wins this year. 7.5. I took the under. I think they're a 7-5 football team. Looking at their schedule, not easy, but Washington and Michigan play each other. So that game for me as a bettor that'll be a huge swing week for me. So if Michigan knocks off Washington, I'm in trouble. But if Washington is able to knock off Michigan,
2 wins for you.
Then that's a good W. That's a good day. So, and speaking of a good day, Ryan Day, headline number 5. Ryan Day, as he's led the Buckeyes to a 23-2 record as Ohio State coach. His only 2 losses: lost to Alabama in the national title game, lost to Clemson in the semifinal in 2020. Has not lost a regular season game, has not lost a Big Ten game. He has just been the absolute best replacement we could have asked for. He's sort of a quarterback whisperer. And you see, Ohio State wasn't known as this school that, quarterbacks just came in and that, we produced NFL talent. It was like the other skill players. And now it's the quarterback play. And I think, Ohio State kind of had a bad rap at the quarterback position with guys that went into the NFL. But I think you're going to see Justin Fields start making some noise this year. I think, Dwayne Haskins, we'll see that, he's back with the Steelers. He might be Roethlisberger's replacement. We'll see how that goes. But some of these guys, your CJ Strouds, your Quinn Ewers, they're going to be NFL players, and we'll see how that all comes to fruition here.
I pictured Terrell Pryor, by the way.
Terrell, and Terrell Pryor, I really, really feel bad for him. He was Ohio State's one of their top recruits of all time. He kind of got hosed in that whole tattoo thing, and obviously Tressel too. That was a bad thing that really oddly would be legal now. They would be able to do that, but it is what it is, but yeah, Terrell Pryor was a great athlete playing quarterback. These guys are great athletes and great quarterbacks playing quarterback. So it's just a new level it's a new dimension Ohio State has now, that they have these continued great athletes, but now they have the quarterback to get them the ball consistently. And Ryan Day has continued to build on Urban Meyer's success. Urban Meyer obviously built on Jim Tressel's success. Jim Tressel really swung it back in favor of Ohio State with the Michigan game. Then Urban Meyer sort of took it to the next level, beating Alabama, beating Oregon for the national title. And now Ryan Day, hasn't won a national title, but I think we're right on the cusp. We're right there in the top, 3 schools in the Big Ten, well, not in the Big Ten, in the entire country. When you talk college football, it's Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, whatever order you want to put them. Alabama's sort of the big dog, and then everybody's kind of fighting for second and third. But I think Ohio State's right on their heels, and very well could pass them in the next couple of years. So we'll keep an eye on that. Next up, I want to just talk to you real quick about who the captains are for Ohio State this year. There's 6 of them. It's going to be, and a lot of these guys I previously mentioned, but offensive tackle Thayer Mumford, he is a senior. Wide receiver Chris Olave, obviously he's a household name around the country. He is also a senior. Cameron Babb, he is another wide receiver. Don't know a whole lot about this guy, but he's well thought of and obviously a captain. He is a junior. Linebacker Taraja Mitchell, a senior. Defensive end Zach Harrison. Watch out for that name, Zach Harrison. He could really make a name for himself going forward and be an impact player going into the NFL next year. And then defensive tackle Haskell Garrett, arguably one of the best players on the Buckeye team. He's a nose tackle, defensive tackle. And the cool thing about being named a captain is you're named a captain by your peers. The coaches will have some say on it, but the team sort of picks the captains. And I think that's really, really cool. So continuing with Ohio State and college football, but the next thing I want to talk about a little bit is ESPN came out with its 100 top college players for the 2021 season. Now, that was based on prior performance and what they've done so far. And Ohio State had 5 players on that list. So number 6 overall was Chris Olave. Number 19 overall was Garrett Wilson. So they're 2 top receivers, 6 and 19 overall. Haskell Garrett, number 30, who we just mentioned. Thayer Mumford, who we just mentioned, number 49. And Tyreek Smith, defensive end, at 61. So those are the Ohio State players that made the list. I would argue Jeremy Ruckert should be on that list. Nicholas Petit-Frere, Sevyn Banks, Zach Harrison, CJ Stroud possibly, but it is on prior performance. But after this year, you would argue those guys would be top 100 guys. So a top 5 overall were Oklahoma's Spencer Rattler. Number 2 was Derek Stingley Jr. He is a cornerback out of LSU. We also had Kayvon Thibodeau. Kayvon Thibodeau is a name we're probably going to hear a lot of in the next couple of weeks because he is a defensive end for Oregon and probably one of the top 5 draft picks in the NFL for next season. So he'll be coming to Columbus, and hopefully our offensive line will be able to handle him. Evan Neal from Alabama, an offensive tackle, and then another guy that's probably going to go in the top 10, 15, 20 of the NFL draft, Sam Howell, the quarterback out of North Carolina. Now, Alabama, I was looking through the list and I was just like, man, it's like every other guy's an Alabama guy. 10 of the top 66 on that list were Alabama players. 10 of the top 66. So just they lost 8 guys in the first 36 picks in the NFL draft, and they still have 10 of the top 66 college football players, according to ESPN. Another one is, let me go through Ohio State's list of opponents that are considered the top players in college football. So Thibodeau, who I mentioned, he is ranked number 3. He's from defensive end from Oregon. Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback for Indiana, coming back off an injury, but had a pretty great season. He's a left-handed quarterback. He, again, is at number 45. Very nice. Aiden Hutchinson is a defensive lineman from the team up north. Should be a pretty nice defensive lineman for them this year. Ty Freifogel, a wide receiver from Indiana. We have Muhammad Ibrahim, who we'll be seeing week 1. He is a running back from Minnesota. George Karloftis, defensive lineman for Purdue, 71. Tywone Mullen, 75 overall from Indiana. He's a corner. We have Jahan Dotson. He made a one-handed catch last year against Ohio State. It was phenomenal, but he comes in at 95. And then 2 Oregon guys coming in at 97 and 98. CJ Verdell, running back, and Johnny Johnson. Johnny Johnson, what a name. The third from wide receiver from Oregon. But hey, the Browns have a safety now from named John Johnson. So that should be pretty good. So by the name, should be pretty solid. All right. So next, the big news of the day, and maybe it's been announced as we've been on air, I'm not sure, but the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12 are going to have what's called an alliance. So now the cool thing I like about this is, Texas and Oklahoma were added to the SEC. Okay, that's great. SEC now has 16 teams. These other conferences are like, well, we got to keep up with the Joneses, that sort of thing. So they were thinking, what should we do? And there's been all this speculation. Well, should we add Kansas? Should we add Oklahoma State? Should we do this? Should we do that? Should we add USC? Should we add Oregon to the Big Ten? That doesn't make a ton of sense when it comes to other sports. You are not going to want to go, you're not going to have Rutgers travel to Oregon to play a softball game. That's just fiscally that doesn't make sense. The cool thing about football, it's once a week, there's not a ton of games and you can travel and it's still profitable. So it makes more sense to have the scheduling alliance, scheduling coalition, whatever you want to call it, where it could be sort of like an NFL situation where, the AFC North teams might play the NFC East or the NFC West teams, and then it rotates. And, you're not going to play each one of those schools, but you might say, okay, in this round, we're going to play one team from the coastal division of the ACC, and we're going to play one team from the southern division of the Pac-12, and it just rotates each and every year. And I'm sure people smarter than me can figure that out. But I think that's a great idea rather than having, USC women's volleyball having to travel to Maryland to play a volleyball game. That just doesn't make sense if you're not in a tournament for a regular season game. So, I think when you consider all the sports, you don't want to load up and have these super conferences. But when it comes to football, I think this alliance makes a lot more sense. So that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on this and see what you think. Joe, if you were running one of these conferences, would you rather have, stick with your traditional, stick with their traditional schools and then just schedule out these other teams, or would you rather have this bigger conference?
That's tough because people are so conditioned for those games, and then you risk kind of like upsetting that with the games that
Mhm.
people go to, and then the stands are everything. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I would rather them do probably a better job with matchups so that you don't have
Mhm.
some of these high, heavily weighted schools against one another, make them more
Sure.
challenging
Yeah,
because there's just some that can't compete in those realms. And you
exactly.
can't have those money games that, you know what I mean, are
Mhm.
terrible to watch, but they do it to put the money in the
Well,
bank.
and that's who it's gonna hurt. That's who this is gonna hurt. It's gonna be the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. So teams like, Bowling Green, OU, Miami of Ohio, like those teams who are used to Kent State, like going down to a game for Alabama, they get, $3 million paycheck or whatever. That's not going to be on the table anymore because there's just not going to be these open dates for a lot of these teams.
I mean,
So
can you stomach those kind of games? Do you
I
watch them?
I mean, if it's I'll watch Ohio State if they're playing anybody, but if it's I know betters will, from a betting perspective, but I think the common fan just has a tendency to tune that game out,
Right.
where you want, you know, more viewers on the game, more eyes on the screen. And that's what, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about money. It's about who can bring in the most money. And, for me, I'd rather have better matchups. But I like the idea of the scheduling rather than the bigger
Right.
conference. To me, that just makes more
Yeah,
sense.
I hear you.
So we'll check in with that. I have no idea what this announcement exactly is going to entail. I'm sure it's going to be like an onion. There's going to be several layers to it, and we'll see how that folds when the news exactly comes out. All right. So speaking of top 100, today's our 100th show. The NFL just released its 100 list. Well, they've actually released 100 to 11, so they're going to unveil the top 10 this weekend. Now, there are, as of it stands, four Cleveland Browns in the top 100 of this list. I think a couple of them did get snubbed, but Myles Garrett is the top ranked Brown. He comes in at number 16 overall. I don't think there's 15 better football players than Myles Garrett out there, in my opinion. Nick Chubb is the second rated Brown. He comes in at number 26 overall. Same thing for Nick Chubb. You can't tell me there's 25 better football players than Nick Chubb. Yeah, maybe he's not quite top 10, but I think he should be in that teens list, in my opinion. Baker Mayfield makes the list, number 71 overall, and first time for him being on this list. And then Jarvis Landry comes in at number 94. He has made this list 6 years in a row, and obviously the top rated wide receiver. So 3 offensive players and 1 defensive player for the Browns. I think there could be several more that would have made this list, but especially on the offensive line, they have some studs on that offensive line. 3 Pittsburgh Steelers made this list. Cam Hayward comes in at number 57. Minka Fitzpatrick comes in at number 52, and then TJ Watt, he is yet to be ranked. So, which tells me he is going to be in the top 10, which really surprises me because if you give me Myles Garrett and you give me TJ Watt, and I might be a little bit of a homer, but I'm taking Myles Garrett 10 times out of 10 over TJ Watt. TJ Watt has that name, he's out there on social media. And don't get me wrong, he's a great football player, but he's also had Cam Hayward on the opposite side of the line. He's also had dominant defensive players with him. So to me, Myles Garrett should be ranked ahead of TJ Watt, but again, that's just my opinion. So those were the 4 Browns and 3 Steelers. 6 Ohio State Buckeyes, who are now in the NFL, made that list. Joey Bosa at number 32. Cam Hayward, who I mentioned with the Steelers, at 57. Corey Linsley, who is a Boardman Spartan and a former Ohio State Buckeye, at number 60, their number 1 ranked center in the NFL. Chase Young at 61 for the Washington football team. Michael Thomas at 72 for the New Orleans Saints. And his teammate for the Saints, Marshawn Lattimore, from Cleveland, number 86. So 6 Buckeyes make that list. Now, they haven't unveiled the top 10. I'm just going to throw my predictions out there. I'm going to shoot my shot and just see if I'm right. So this is more fun just for me. I want to see if I'm right. So I put 3 quarterbacks, 1, 2, and 3. So I went Tom Brady 1, just because he won the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay stunk before he got there. Now all of a sudden they won the Super Bowl. They're great. They're probably the favorites to win it again this year. And I know he's old, but I mean, the guy's still doing it at the highest level. So Brady, I have 1. Pat Mahomes, I have 2.
I'm with you on that.
And you could flip a coin. Pat Mahomes is more talented, but Brady just wins. You know what I mean? So Aaron Rodgers at number 3, not hosting Jeopardy. So, he'll be ranked 3, and it'll be very, very interesting to see who he is the quarterback for next season. He's going to play this season with Green Bay, but they're kind of calling it the last dance here. I have my first defensive player at number 4, Aaron Donald, out of the University of Pittsburgh, but he plays for the Los Angeles Rams, multi-defensive player of the year. I have Devontae Adams as my top-rated wide receiver at number 5. Travis Kelce, who is also from Cleveland, number 6, who is the tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. But that guy is a matchup nightmare, and I think he might be the most valuable. Him and Devontae Adams might be the most valuable offensive player that is not a quarterback in the NFL. Derrick Henry, I have at number 7. He was the rushing leader the last couple of years, and he's just an absolute workhorse for the Tennessee Titans. I have Josh Allen at number 8 for the Buffalo Bills. He made the greatest leap that I remember a quarterback taking in the offseason, and he got paid. He got paid for it. So he comes in at number 8, quarterback for the Bills. DeAndre Hopkins, I have at number 9, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. And then, I put TJ Watt at 10 simply because I don't think he's better than any players on this list. I think he is, again, any Steeler fans watching, I think he's a great football player. I just don't think he is a top 10 player. Top 20 probably, but top 10 remains to be seen. So that is my list. I thought it was, I think it's pretty accurate. We'll see how you guys feel about that. We're going to go ahead and play a quick video to tell you what's upcoming, and so we'll be right back with some other baseball news and some other fun stuff around the sports world.
Thank you. As today is our 100th episode of the 330 Sports Show, we are also brought to you by Youngstown Studio. Just wanted to give you a couple quick updates on upcoming show topics. Obviously, each Tuesday, we're going to have a Top 5 Tuesday. We're going to do our Tailgate Thursday during the high school football season with Steve Leslie, breaking down the best 5 high school football games of the week and spotlighting a lot of those athletes. We're going to be doing an Ohio State preview and an ultimate Buckeyes fantasy style draft coming up soon. We're also going to be featuring Steve Leslie again with his partner in the radio booth, Bob Hannon. They are the radio voices of the Youngstown State Penguins, and they will be in studio very soon. So tune into that show. We're also going to break down the Cleveland Browns and all their division opponents, the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Ravens. We're going to do an NFL running back and defensive player draft. We're going to have a lot of great guests. We have a few that I'm really, really excited about. Maybe some of our biggest guests we've ever featured in the coming weeks and months. On top of that, we're also going to continue with some of our fun topics, that deal with movies and drafts and stuff like that, along with the headlines of what's trending in sports and pop culture. So just want to remind you too that you can watch any of our shows or any other shows in our network on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can listen on any platform you get your podcast from. Follow my show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 330 Sports Show. And again, just wanted to let you know that each Thursday during football season, Steve Leslie will break down all the big local high school games. And something I'm excited as well that's coming up on Tuesday, August 31st. We're going to do the film room breakdown of Varsity Blues. This is going to be our third installment. We've done Groundhog Day, we did Happy Gilmore, and now we're going to do Varsity Blues. We're going to try to do one of these a month or at least every other month and just have some fun with it in addition to our regular programming. So looking forward to all that stuff. Appreciate you guys for listening. The best way you guys can help us is share out our program on your Facebook feeds or,
clip. Best way you guys can help us is just share our broadcasts out. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back to some sports news around baseball. So I'm gonna start with Miguel Cabrera. Miguel Cabrera, slugger for the Detroit Tigers, hit his 500th home run the other night, and he is. I just wrote down some cool stuff after he hit that, like learning about him, because I've followed his career, for a long time. I used to love this guy until he came to the Tigers, but now that he's kind of at the end of his career and the Tigers aren't very good anymore, he's a fun player to root for. So he's just a really likable guy. But he is the youngest player to start cleanup in a World Series game. That was with the Florida Marlins. He is one of the best all-around hitters now that has joined the 500 home run club. His .311 career batting average ranks 5th among those 28 players in that 500 club, and only 9 of them batted .300 in their careers. He won batting titles in 2011, hitting .344, 2012, hitting .330, 2013, .348, and 2015, .338. I mean, that's just an unbelievable run. The only other right-handed hitters with 500 home runs and a 300 average are Manny Ramirez, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, and Frank Thomas. That's a pretty good list to be associated with. Cabrera's 4 batting titles ties Ted Williams for the most among the members of the 500 home run club. He has won 2 home run titles. He won a Triple Crown in 2012. Triple Crown is highest batting average, most home runs, and most RBIs in a season in your league, and he won that in 2012. He was the first player to do that since 1967. So that was Carl Yastrzemski back for the Red Sox back in the day. Cabrera also won the first of his back-to-back MVP in 2012. So 12 and 13, and he beat Mike Trout both times for that. And a few more facts. This was interesting. He has 41 2-homer games and only 2 3-homer games in his career. His most victimized team, you guys can probably guess it, the Cleveland Indians. He's hit 50 home runs against Cleveland Indians, so 10% of all his home runs against the Indians. The pitcher he's hit the most home runs off of is Phil Hughes. He's hit 7 off of him. He has 7 walk-off home runs. And the next thing up for this guy is the 3,000 hit club, which has 32 members. He's approaching that. He should probably break that early next season. He's not quite close enough to do it this season, but it should be pretty awesome for him. And he is going to be in that 3,000 hit 500 home run club, which includes only 6 players: Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Albert Pujols, Eddie Murray, Alex Rodriguez, and Rafael Palmeiro. So that's a pretty great list to be on. Next thing I want us to talk about just a little bit. The other night, the Indians played in the Little League Classic in Williamsport, Pennsylvania against the Los Angeles Angels. It was a really cool scene because you're playing, I think it's a AA ballpark, but it's not a very big stadium, but the stadium was filled with little leaguers. And I just thought that was really, really cool to see these kids that have, at their age, at their level, are at the highest they can do, but they're rewarded with getting to go see a couple major league teams go play. The Indians came out on top 3-0, but I'd say still the big show. The big star of that show was Shohei Ohtani. He was just like getting autographs left and right, and there was lines to come check him out. So that was just really, really cool. And I think that's something Major League Baseball does a really good job of. Major League Baseball, not the most progressive sport of the four major ones, but they've done some really cool stuff with, this Little League Classic. They did the Field of Dreams game, which was excellent. That was just well done. So that was kind of cool. So flipping now to the Guardians, I want to talk, the Indians or the Guardians, whatever you want to call them. They had, they were sitting at 41-30 earlier on this season, 10 or 11 games over 500. And then they kind of fell off with injuries and whatnot, but they have creeped back up. They're back at the 500 mark. They're at 61-61, which I can't say this for a fact, but I think Lou Brown in Major League says something to like one of the other managers. He's like 61-61. That's not bad for a baseball team or something like that. So I think they might have the same record as they did in Major League. Maybe they can pull out the Rachel Phelps thing and peel a section every time they win a game. But there is some optimism to be had for the Indians and next year the Guardians in 2022. First of all, they're not going to have, Francisco Lindor's contract or whatever over their heads. They have Jose Ramirez, who's arguably one of the top 10 players in baseball. He is signed to a very, very team-friendly contract for the next 2 seasons. They have an absolutely loaded pitching staff, very young pitching staff too. Shane Bieber, who's been hurt, and if he wants to get back in and get some reps in, that's great. But if it were me, I would save him, shelve him for the rest of the year, let him pitch on the side, get some work in, but I would save him for an all-in for 2022. You got Plesac, Savale, Tristan Mckenzie has come on like crazy. He has just been pitching outstanding for the Tribe, and he should be a solid he could be a very solid number 2 starter going forward, probably your number 4 starter next season. And then Cal Quantrill, he's a guy they picked up from San Diego last year in a trade. And he struggled out of the gates at first, but he has come on in another one. And you're talking, you have a 4th and 5th starter at the caliber of a lot of teams' 2nd and 3rd level starting pitchers. So the Indians, and I keep saying the Indians, but again, the Guardians next season should be a very, very fun team to watch. They also have a good back end of the bullpen, James Karinchak, Emmanuel Clase. They have finally found a center fielder that's going to be pretty solid for them. Miles Straw, they picked him up from the Houston Astros. And then a lot of emerging young talent. And a lot of that emerging young talent is getting to play this season. So that's why I can't say, you can't chalk this season up completely. You still have, you got probably about 40 games left. So you're about the 3/4 mark of the season. Let these young guys play and let's see what they can do. But Daniel Johnson, outfielder, Bobby Bradley, first baseman, Nolan Jones hopefully gets to come up and play a little bit. Ahmad Rosario has been amazing this year. Owen Miller, and then Andres Jimenez, who they picked up as well for Lindor, should be a solid middle infield for the Indians for years to come. So that will be something to keep an eye on, that talent level for the next couple of years. And hopefully the Indians are able to compete and get back into the playoffs as the Cleveland Guardians next season. I had this sort of in my phone and I saved it for a long time ago. And I saw it just because it popped up on the date. So this date in history, this has to be the most insane graphic ever made. So Ray Caldwell, a pitcher for, I believe it was the Indians at the time, 1919. He was struck by lightning during a game in the 9th inning of his Indians debut. He finished the game after being revived. So this dude, we have pitchers leaving for hangnails now, or a blister, or whatever. This guy was struck by freaking lightning on the mound and finished the game after being revived. And here's an even cooler stat. 17 days later, he pitches a no-hitter. So I'd say he came out all right from the Lightning, and he won 20 games for the 1920 world champion Cleveland Indians. So
performance enhancing lightning.
Yeah. Did they drug test him for that after that? So, that was kind of the good. And, now real quick, the bad of Major League Baseball real quick, the Baltimore Orioles. And, I feel for these guys right now because, teams just go through bad stretches. The Baltimore Orioles right now are on a historic bad streak. And real quick, on a side note, nothing to do with baseball or sports or anything. Isn't it weird to say? I always want to say a historic. It's an historic. It just sounds funny to me. I don't know, but anyway, semantics. But the Orioles right now have lost 18 consecutive games. In that 18 consecutive game losing streak, they are minus 102 in the run differential. 102. So that means you're averaging you're losing every game by at least five runs on average. So that's pretty bad. This is not the first time this has happened to this franchise. In 1988, they started the season 0-21. So pretty rough stretch there. You might be thinking, what's the all-time record? So that would be held by the 1961 Philadelphia Phillies, who lost 23 games in a row. So Baltimore, you feel for them. If you play organized sports, most likely at some point you're going to go through a bad stretch, but 18 games is pretty rough. So that's not ideal. Now, Joe, did you see this story about the horse that got loose this past weekend?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this horse's name is Bold and Bossy.
Okay.
And so I saw it on the news, and then I just thought it was interesting. So this horse down in Kentucky at one of the tracks, basically bucked off his rider and got loose and just got somehow out of the track and then onto, I think they said in the story, it's Route 41. So it looks like our Route 11 or 680 around here. This horse is just running down this freeway for 30 minutes. So they were finally able to catch him. I'll just show you the quick, this is from the Today Show. I'll just show you this real quick.
Racetrack at Ellis Park in Kentucky on Saturday and gallop onto the highway, you may collect your winnings. She's named Bold and Bossy. She's supposed to be running her first ever race, but instead she ditched her rider and took off for Highway 41. Bold and Bossy ran down the road for about 30 minutes before she was caught eventually. We're told she's doing just fine. Bold and Bossy indeed.
So I thought that was pretty funny. Not something you see every day. And how weird would that be? You're just driving down and you look out your mirror and you see a horse coming or something like that. Just strange. And then final note I have is we need to get someone to check the NBC Los Angeles, NBC4 in Los Angeles, their editor for social media. So this was just too good not to share. So I saw this on Twitter. I screenshotted it right away, but it said, "Come with vax proof or get shot on site." So obviously, if you're not vaccinated, they're offering COVID shots. But the way it sounded, if you're not vaccinated, you're going to get shot on site.
Raiders fans.
Yeah, Raiders fans. It's not out of the question. But I thought that was worth sharing and pretty funny. So that's all we got for today. I appreciate everyone tuning in. And again, thank you all for, helping us, supporting us during our through our 100 shows. We've had so many great guests, and we're going to continue to get better and better each and every week, each and every show. But that's thanks to you guys for sharing this out, putting the content out there for everyone to listen to. Thank you to Joe. And usually Lucas is here. He's not with us today, but But thanks to everyone down here at Youngstown Studio who does a fantastic job. And if you have not seen our studio down in Youngstown Studio, go to Youngstown Studio on Facebook or YouTube. Check it out. You can actually rent this out and record shows at some point if you're interested in doing what we do a little bit. So thanks to everybody. We will see you on Thursday. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us. Thank you.